The morning sun cast long shadows across Michigan Avenue as Jasmine Brooks stepped out of her black Tesla. At 35, she possessed quiet confidence that came from building an empire from nothing. Her navy blazer was understated, jewelry minimal. Nothing about her appearance screamed wealth or power. That was intentional. She paused, gazing up at the sterling Regency Chicago. 48 hours ago, she had signed papers making her sole owner of this prestigious hotel chain. Today, she would see what kind of operation she had acquired. The irony wasn't lost on her. A black woman from the South Side now owned one of Chicago's most exclusive establishments. As she approached the revolving doors, Jasmine noticed marble floors gleaming under crystal chandeliers, the gold-trimmed reception desk, carefully curated artwork that whispered old money and exclusivity. This was the world she now owned, but it had never been designed for her. The moment she stepped into the opulent lobby, Marcus Thompson, head of security, sized her up with barely concealed disdain. His eyes swept over her from head to toe, lingering on her natural hair and modest appearance. To him, she was clearly out of place. "Excuse me, miss," Marcus said, his tone confrontational. "Are you lost? This is a private hotel." His words carried assumption that someone like her couldn't possibly belong here. Jasmine met his gaze with steady composure. "Good morning. I'm here on business." She didn't elaborate, watching his frown deepen. In spaces like these, black women were guilty until proven innocent. "Business?" Marcus laughed dismissively. "Ma'am, you really don't belong here. Our guests expect a certain atmosphere." The pause before atmosphere hung heavy with implication. As their exchange continued, staff members began taking notice. Behind the reception desk, Emma Martinez whispered to her colleague, eyes darting between Jasmine and Marcus. What none of them knew was that they were about to humiliate their new owner, and in 2 hours, their world would be completely upside down. You won't believe what happens when they discover exactly who they just tried to throw out. Jasmine approached the marble reception desk with deliberate calm, her posture professional despite the hostile energy from staff around her. Morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows illuminated gold accents and crystal fixtures, creating an almost theatrical backdrop. "Good morning," she said to Emma Martinez, whose nameplate gleamed against her navy uniform. "I'd like to speak with your management team about service standards and operational procedures." Emma's eyebrows shot up as she exchanged a knowing look with colleague Sarah Chen. The two had worked morning shifts together for 3 years, developing an unspoken code for dealing with problem guests, people who didn't fit Sterling Regency's carefully cultivated image. "Service standards," Emma repeated, voice dripping with barely concealed amusement. "Ma'am, our service standards are quite exclusive. Are you perhaps looking for a different type of establishment?" The suggestion was clear. This place wasn't for people like her. Sarah leaned over the counter, joining with a condescending smile. "We cater to a very specific clientele here. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at one of the chain hotels downtown." Her words were delivered with practiced sweetness of someone accustomed to turning people away while maintaining plausible deniability. Jasmine's expression remained neutral, but her mind catalogued every microaggression, every coded phrase, every dismissive gesture. She had built her hospitality empire by understanding that true luxury lay not in marble and gold, but in making every guest feel valued and respected. "I see," Jasmine replied steadily. "And who determines whether someone fits your clientele?" The question hung like a challenge, though her tone remained professionally curious. Before Emma could respond, Patricia Williams emerged from the back office like a predator sensing opportunity. As day shift manager, Patricia had spent 15 years climbing Sterling Regency's ranks, taking pride in maintaining what she called standards. Her perfectly coiffed blonde hair and designer suit were armor against anything that might threaten the established order. "Is there a problem here?" Patricia's voice cut through the lobby's ambient noise, drawing attention from several guests lingering over morning coffee. Her eyes fixed on Jasmine with cold assessment. "No problem at all," Jasmine responded evenly. "I was hoping to discuss your operational procedures with management. I'm particularly interested in your guest relations policies and staff training programs." Patricia's laugh was sharp and calculated. "Our procedures are proprietary, and frankly, they're designed for people who understand our particular market position." She paused, letting words sink in. "The Sterling Regency serves a very exclusive demographic, people with certain expectations about their environment and the caliber of individuals they encounter." The implication was crystal clear, delivered with polished discrimination wrapped in corporate speak. Jasmine recognized it immediately. She had faced variations countless times on her journey from South Side to boardroom. The tension crystallized as Patricia called for additional security backup. Marcus moved closer to Jasmine's position, his imposing frame casting a shadow over polished marble. Morning light seemed to sharpen the contrast between the hotel's opulent surroundings and growing hostility of its staff. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave," Marcus said, voice carrying authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. "You're causing a disturbance, and our guests are beginning to complain." Jasmine glanced around the lobby, noting curious stares from well-dressed patrons who had paused their morning routines to observe unfolding drama. An elderly white woman in Chanel whispered to her companion behind a gloved hand. A businessman checked his Rolex, clearly annoyed by disruption to his morning coffee ritual. "I haven't raised my voice or made any demands," Jasmine replied calmly, tone remaining professional despite escalating situation. "I simply asked to speak with management about your operational procedures." She reached into her purse and withdrew a business card from Brooks' Hospitality Empire. Patricia snatched the card before Jasmine could fully extend it, eyes scanning elegant lettering with obvious skepticism. "Brooks' Hospitality Empire?" she read aloud, voice dripping with disdain. "Anyone can print fancy business cards these days. We get scammers and wannabes in here all the time, trying to pass themselves off as legitimate business people." The accusation hung like toxic cloud, and Jasmine felt familiar sting of assumptions based on nothing more than skin color. She had built a multi-billion-dollar empire through hard work and strategic thinking, yet here she stood, being dismissed as fraud by people who wouldn't recognize real success. "I assure you my credentials are authentic," Jasmine said, voice maintaining steady cadence. "Perhaps you could verify them through your standard procedures for business inquiries." Marcus stepped closer, bulk intended to intimidate. "Lady, we don't need to verify anything. The fact that you're standing here arguing with management tells us everything we need to know about your so-called credentials." Sarah Chen had begun typing furiously on her computer, face flushed with excitement of being part of what she clearly saw as justified enforcement. "Should I call the police?" she asked Patricia in a stage whisper clearly intended for Jasmine to hear. "Not yet," Patricia replied, voice loud enough to carry to gathering crowd. "Let's give her one more chance to leave voluntarily before we escalate this to law enforcement." Jasmine felt her phone buzz, a text from CFO David Chen, already en route for their planned meeting. The irony wasn't lost that help was literally on the way, but she wasn't ready to reveal her hand. She wanted to see exactly how deep the rot went. The confrontation was about to enter a much darker phase, and Patricia Williams seemed determined to dig herself into a hole from which there would be no graceful escape. The atmosphere shifted dramatically as Patricia Williams decided to abandon all pretense of professional courtesy. Her 15 years of unchallenged authority had convinced her she was untouchable. She was about to learn how wrong she could be. "Look," Patricia said, voice dropping to a harsh whisper that somehow carried more menace than shouting. "I'm going to be very clear with you. People like you don't belong in a place like this. Our clientele has certain expectations about the caliber of individuals they encounter during their stay." She paused, letting words sink in with their full toxic weight. "And frankly, your presence here is making our guests uncomfortable." The racial coding was unmistakable, delivered with polished cruelty that came from years of practice. Around the lobby, conversations had stopped entirely as guests and staff focused on unfolding drama. Morning light streaming through windows seemed to spotlight the moment, creating theatrical backdrop for Patricia's public humiliation of a woman she didn't know was her new boss. Marcus stepped even closer, massive frame intended to intimidate. "Mom, you need to understand that this is a private establishment. We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone who doesn't meet our standards." His emphasis on standards was loaded with implication. "Your standards," Jasmine repeated quietly, voice steady despite rising tide of hostility. She reached for her phone, activating recording function with subtle swipe. Years of navigating hostile corporate environments had taught her to always document discrimination. And these standards are applied equally to all potential guests and business associates. "Don't try to turn this into something it's not," Patricia snapped, professional mask finally slipping completely. "This isn't about race or discrimination or any of that nonsense. This is about maintaining an atmosphere that our paying customers expect and deserve." Sarah Chen, emboldened by her manager's increasingly aggressive stance, leaned forward with a smirk. "Maybe you should try the Holiday Inn downtown. I'm sure they'd be more accommodating to your situation." The gathering crowd had grown larger, with several guests pulling out phones to record what was clearly becoming a significant incident. An elderly man in expensive suit nodded approvingly at Patricia's handling, while a younger woman near elevator bank looked visibly uncomfortable. Jasmine remained unnaturally calm in face of escalating hostility, her composure serving as stark contrast to growing chaos around her. She had learned that in situations like these, maintaining dignity was both resistance and strategic advantage. "I see," Jasmine said softly, voice carrying weight that Patricia was too blinded by prejudice to recognize. "So when you say people like me, you're referring specifically to what characteristics?" Patricia's face flushed red as she realized she was being maneuvered into dangerous territory, but arrogance wouldn't allow her to back down. "I'm referring to people who clearly don't understand the level of sophistication and refinement that the Sterling Regency represents," she said, words carefully chosen but meaning unmistakable. But even as Patricia spoke, Jasmine was quietly sending text message to her legal team and CFO, alerting them that discrimination she had suspected was not only real, but was being performed with shocking brazenness. The time for subtle investigation was over. Marcus leaned in closer, voice dropping to threatening growl. "Ma'am, this is your final warning. Leave voluntarily, or we'll have you removed by force and banned from the premises permanently." As confrontation reached crescendo, none of Sterling Regency staff realized they were about to face consequences in the most dramatic way possible. In her purse, Jasmine carried not just business cards and recording devices, but legal documents that would transform their comfortable world of discrimination into nightmare of accountability. These procedures seemed designed to target very specific individuals, but did they have any idea who they were really dealing with? The situation escalated to unprecedented levels as General Manager Richard Blackstone emerged from executive elevator, summoned by Patricia's increasingly frantic calls. At 58, Blackstone carried himself with imperious confidence of a man who had never faced real accountability. His silver hair was perfectly styled, Italian suit immaculate, and his expression carried cold satisfaction of someone about to demonstrate authority. "What exactly is happening here?" Blackstone demanded, voice cutting through lobby tension like a blade. His eyes immediately fixed on Jasmine with calculating assessment that reduced human beings to potential threats. "Patricia, explain the situation. Sir, this individual has been harassing our staff and disrupting our guests." Patricia replied, voice gaining confidence from Blackstone's presence. "She's been making unreasonable demands about speaking with management and refuses to leave despite multiple requests." Blackstone nodded approvingly, expression hardening as he studied Jasmine from head to toe. "Miss, I'm going to be very direct with you. The Sterling Regency caters to a very exclusive clientele with very specific expectations. Your presence here is clearly making our guests uncomfortable, and that's simply not acceptable." The crowd of onlookers had grown significantly, with guests gathering around lobby's perimeter like spectators at public execution. Several had phones out, recording what was clearly becoming major incident. Among them, VIP guest Richard Pemberton III watched with obvious approval as Blackstone asserted control. "Excellent handling of this situation, Richard," Pemberton called out, voice carrying across marble expanse. "This is exactly why I choose to stay at the Sterling Regency. You maintain proper standards." But the most dramatic escalation came when Patricia pulled out her personal phone and opened Instagram account, which had nearly 50,000 followers. "I'm going to document this for everyone to see," she announced, switching to live mode. "This is what happens when people try to disrupt the peaceful environment that our guests pay premium prices to enjoy." Within moments, her live stream had attracted several hundred viewers, numbers climbing rapidly as word spread through social media about unfolding drama at Chicago's most exclusive hotel. Comments began flooding in from viewers, most expressing support for Patricia's handling of what they perceived as entitled troublemaker. "We have over 500 people watching this right now," Patricia announced triumphantly, holding phone to capture both herself and Jasmine in frame. "And they can all see how professionally we're handling this disruption." The livestream viewer count continued climbing, 800, 1,200, 1,500, as incident gained viral momentum. What Patricia didn't realize was that she was documenting her own professional destruction in real time, creating permanent record of institutional discrimination that would soon be used as evidence. Marcus Thompson, emboldened by growing crowd and management support, took step closer to Jasmine. "Ma'am, we're calling security backup and potentially law enforcement. This is your absolute final opportunity to leave voluntarily before this becomes much more serious situation." Jasmine remained unnaturally calm amid growing chaos, her composure serving as stark contrast to escalating aggression around her. She quietly activated AirPods and placed discreet call to David Chen, her CFO, who was already en route. "David," she said quietly, "I need you to expedite your arrival. Bring the acquisition documents and legal team. We have a situation that requires immediate intervention." The crowd pressed closer, sensing something significant was about to happen. Sarah Chen had abandoned reception desk entirely, joining circle of staff members who had gathered to witness what they believed would be Jasmine's ultimate humiliation and removal. "You know what I find interesting?" Blackstone said, voice dropping to more menacing tone. "People who refuse to accept reality when it's clearly explained to them. People who think they can force their way into spaces where they're not wanted through sheer persistence and disruption." Patricia's livestream viewer count had reached 2,000 and was still climbing, with comments flooding in from around the country. Sterling Regency drama began trending locally as word spread through Chicago's social media networks. The tension had reached breaking point, with staff, management, and guests all aligned against single black woman who had dared to request basic respect and professional courtesy. None of them had any idea that they were about to experience plot twist that would change everything they thought they knew about power, authority, and consequences. In less than 10 minutes, their world would be turned completely upside down, and it would all be captured on live stream for the world to see. The atmosphere had become suffocating, with more than 30 people gathered in loose circle around confrontation. Patricia's livestream viewer count had exploded to over 5,000 as word spread across social media platforms, hashtags trending, and phone notifications pinging throughout Chicago about drama unfolding at Sterling Regency. Richard Blackstone's confidence had reached its peak as he prepared to deliver what he believed would be final blow. "Security is on the way," he announced loudly enough for both crowd and Patricia's live stream audience to hear clearly. "We're implementing permanent trespassing ban and contacting law enforcement about this continued harassment." Marcus Thompson had been joined by 3 additional security officers, creating intimidating wall of uniformed authority around Jasmine's position. The message was clear: submit or be forcibly removed. The crowd seemed to hold collective breath, anticipating climactic moment when order would be restored. "This is completely unacceptable," shouted Pemberton from his position near concierge desk. "I pay premium rates to avoid exactly this kind of disturbance. Remove her immediately." Patricia held phone higher, ensuring her 5,000-plus viewers could capture every moment of what she believed would be Jasmine's ultimate humiliation. "Everyone watching can see how patient and professional we've been," she narrated to her audience. "But there are limits to what any business should have to tolerate." But just as situation reached absolute breaking point, elevator chimed softly, and David Chen stepped into lobby carrying leather briefcase and accompanied by 2 individuals in expensive suits. The timing was cinematic, as if choreographed for maximum dramatic impact. David Chen, Jasmine's CFO for 8 years, was Harvard MBA with impeccable reputation in Chicago's business community. His presence immediately shifted energy in room, though Sterling Regency staff was too focused on their confrontation to initially notice significance of his arrival. "Miss Brooks," David called out clearly, voice cutting through lobby tension like knife through silk. "I apologize for the delay. The acquisition documents have been finalized and filed with County Recorder's Office as of 8:47 this morning. You now officially own the Sterling Regency Chicago in its entirety." The words landed like bomb in middle of crowded lobby. Patricia's livestream captured exact moment when 7,000 viewers witnessed most spectacular plot twist in social media history. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by soft sound of phones clattering to marble floors. Blackstone's face went from confident authority to absolute terror in span of 3 seconds. Patricia's livestream showed her own expression of shock and growing horror as she realized she had just live-streamed herself discriminating against her new owner in front of thousands of witnesses. "That's impossible," Blackstone whispered, though voice carried clearly in dead silence. "The ownership transfer wasn't supposed to happen until next month. There must be some mistake." David Chen opened briefcase with professional efficiency, withdrawing stack of legal documents bound in blue covers. "No mistake, Mr. Blackstone. Brooks Hospitality Empire completed acquisition 48 hours ahead of schedule. Ms. Brooks has been legal owner of this property since yesterday evening." He handed documents to Jasmine with slight smile. "Congratulations on your latest acquisition." Jasmine accepted documents with same calm composure she had maintained throughout entire ordeal. When she spoke, her voice carried quiet authority that immediately transformed power dynamics in room. "Thank you, David. I trust the transition teams are ready to begin implementation of our new operational standards." "Absolutely," David replied, voice now addressing stunned crowd as much as Jasmine. "We have diversity consultants, HR specialists, and legal compliance officers standing by to begin immediate reforms." Patricia's phone was still live streaming, now to over 8,000 viewers who were witnessing most dramatic reversal of power anyone had ever seen. Comments exploded across screen as viewers realized they had just watched black woman being discriminated against by staff of hotel she actually owned. The crowd that had gathered to witness Jasmine's humiliation was now witnessing something entirely different. Moment when institutional racism met immediate and devastating consequences. The morning light streaming through lobby windows seemed to spotlight moment, creating perfect theatrical lighting for what was about to become one of most spectacular reversals of power in Chicago's business history. Jasmine looked around silent lobby, her gaze taking in faces of staff members, guests, and onlookers who had just witnessed most spectacular demonstration of instant karma in Chicago business history. When she spoke again, her words were measured, professional, and absolutely devastating in their implications. "I think," she said quietly, "it's time we had a conversation about what hospitality actually means." The reckoning that followed Jasmine's revelation was swift, decisive, and absolutely devastating for everyone who had participated in her humiliation. What had begun as a moment of institutional discrimination was about to become masterclass in immediate accountability, all captured on Patricia's live stream for nearly 20,000 viewers to witness in real time. "Mr. Blackstone," Jasmine said, voice carrying quiet authority of absolute power, "your employment with Sterling Regency is terminated immediately. Please surrender your company credentials and personal effects from your office will be forwarded within 48 hours. Words were delivered with clinical precision, each syllable landing like hammer blow. Blackstone's face went through spectrum of emotions, shock, denial, anger, and finally desperate kind of pleading. "Ms. Brooks, surely we can discuss this privately. I've dedicated 15 years to this company. My actions today were simply a misunderstanding about policies. Your actions today were perfect demonstration of why this company needed new ownership," Jasmine replied, tone remaining professional but implacable. Discrimination disguised as standards, prejudice wrapped in corporate policy. That ends today, permanently. She turned attention to Patricia Williams, who stood frozen with phone still live streaming to audience that had swelled past 22,000 viewers. "Miss Williams, your position as day shift manager is also terminated immediately. Your live stream has provided excellent documentation of discriminatory practices that will be forwarded to appropriate regulatory agencies." Patricia's phone almost slipped from trembling hands. The live stream she had intended to document her professional competence had instead captured her professional destruction in real time. This is unfair," Patricia stammered, voice barely audible above murmur of crowd. "I was just following established procedures. I was protecting the hotel's reputation." Marcus Thompson stepped forward with security credentials already in hand, apparently hoping voluntary surrender might somehow minimize consequences. "Ms. Brooks, I was just doing my job. I didn't know. If I had known who you were—" "Mr. Thompson," Jasmine interrupted, voice cutting through his stammered excuses. "The problem isn't that you didn't know who I was. The problem is how you treated someone you thought had no power to defend themselves. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." She gestured to David Chen, who immediately stepped forward with prepared termination letter. "Your employment is terminated for discriminatory conduct and abuse of authority. Your security license will be reviewed by appropriate state authorities." The systematic dismantling continued as Jasmine turned attention to reception staff. Emma Martinez and Sarah Chen stood huddled together near front desk, both realizing their casual participation in discrimination was about to have serious consequences. "Ms. Martinez and Ms. Chen," Jasmine said, voice carrying across lobby with devastating clarity. "Your employment is suspended pending full investigation into your conduct and participation in discriminatory practices." But consequences extended beyond just staff. Jasmine's gaze found Richard Pemberton III, who was still trying to edge toward Elevator Bank without being noticed. "Mr. Pemberton," she called out, stopping him in tracks. "I believe you publicly endorsed the discriminatory treatment I received today. The Sterling Regency no longer welcomes your business, and you are permanently banned from all Brooks hospitality properties nationwide." David Chen stepped forward with prepared statement that he began reading to crowd and Patricia's still active live stream. Brooks Hospitality Empire is announcing immediate implementation of comprehensive anti-discrimination policies across all properties. We will be conducting full staff retraining, implementing bias reporting systems, and establishing zero-tolerance policies for discriminatory conduct. Patricia's livestream viewer count had peaked at nearly 25,000 as word spread across social media about most spectacular example of instant karma anyone had ever witnessed. Sterling Regency justice was trending nationally, with millions of people sharing clips and commentary about dramatic reversal they had just watched unfold. "Effective immediately," Jasmine announced to stunned crowd and thousands of live stream viewers. The Sterling Regency Chicago will become flagship location for Brooks Hospitality's new Center for Inclusive Excellence. We will be offering scholarships for underrepresented students pursuing hospitality management, implementing mentorship programs for minority entrepreneurs, and establishing this location as model for what luxury hospitality can look like when it truly serves everyone. The transformation was complete. What had begun as moment of discrimination had become catalyst for systemic change, all witnessed by tens of thousands of people who had watched justice arrive with force of immediate and total accountability. As immediate shock of terminations began to settle, Jasmine Brooks took moment to address not just remaining staff and stunned guests, but thousands of viewers still watching Patricia's live stream. This was her opportunity to transform moment of personal discrimination into broader message about dignity, justice, and responsibility that comes with power. "To everyone who witnessed what happened here today," Jasmine began, voice carrying clearly throughout Marble Lobby and across internet to viewers around world, "I want you to understand that this wasn't about revenge or humiliation. This was about accountability and change." She paused, allowing words to sink in, while Patricia's phone continued capturing every moment for audience that had grown to nearly 30,000 viewers. The hashtag #Sterling Regency Justice was trending across multiple platforms as people shared and discussed most dramatic example of instant karma many had ever witnessed. "I've spent my entire career building businesses based on belief that true hospitality means making everyone feel valued and respected, regardless of their appearance, background, or perceived status." Jasmine continued. "What you witnessed here today was opposite of hospitality. It was prejudice disguised as professionalism, discrimination wrapped in corporate policy." Maria Rodriguez, housekeeper who had witnessed entire confrontation while quietly going about her duties, stepped forward from where she had been standing near service corridors. Her presence represented dozens of hotel employees who had watched drama unfold but had been powerless to intervene. "Ms. Brooks," Maria said, voice steady despite emotional weight of moment, "I want to thank you for what you just did. I've worked here for 8 years, and I've seen how certain guests and employees get treated differently. Nobody ever stood up to it before." Jasmine turned to Maria with genuine warmth, recognizing in her kind of employee who embodied true hospitality values. "Maria, I'd like to offer you position of guest relations manager, effective immediately. Your years of observing how people should be treated, combined with your obvious integrity, make you exactly the kind of leader this hotel needs." The promotion was spontaneous but meaningful, representing commitment to elevating employees who had demonstrated character over those who had simply demonstrated compliance with discriminatory systems. The Sterling Regency will be implementing comprehensive changes over next 90 days, Jasmine announced, addressing both crowd and live stream audience. "We're not just changing policies, we're changing culture. Every employee will participate in bias training, inclusive service workshops, and ongoing education about what hospitality excellence really means. David Chen stepped forward with additional details. Brooks Hospitality is also announcing $5 million scholarship fund for underrepresented students pursuing careers in hospitality management. The fund will be administered through partnership with University of Chicago's Business School and will provide full tuition support for qualifying students. I also want to address something important, Jasmine said, voice taking on more personal tone. Some people might wonder why I didn't immediately reveal my identity when discrimination began. The answer is simple. I wanted to see what kind of operation I had acquired. I wanted to understand whether prejudices I encountered were individual failings or institutional problems. She gestured toward Patricia's still live-streaming phone, acknowledging thousands of viewers who had witnessed entire confrontation. What you all saw today was institutional discrimination, operating exactly as it was designed to, quietly, systematically, and with full support of management and systems. To the young people watching this, Jasmine continued, looking directly into Patricia's camera, I want you to understand that your dignity is not negotiable. You don't have to accept disrespectful treatment just because someone has authority over you. And to people in positions of power watching this, remember that authority comes with responsibility. Responsibility to treat everyone with respect, regardless of whether you think they can hold you accountable. Her words carried weight of lived experience, of someone who had faced discrimination throughout her career, but had never allowed it to diminish her commitment to building something better. Everyone watching this today has a choice to make, Jasmine said, voice carrying authority of someone who had just demonstrated power of standing up to discrimination. You can choose to be bystander when you witness prejudice, or you can choose to be agent of change. You can accept that this is just how things are, or you can demand that things become what they should be. She gestured toward Maria Rodriguez, who was still glowing with pride over her unexpected promotion. Maria stood here for 20 minutes watching discrimination happen, but she also stood here as witness to accountability. Tomorrow, when she sees something wrong, she'll have authority and support to address it immediately. That's how change actually happens. One person, one moment, one decision at a time. To the business leaders watching this, Jasmine continued, understand that inclusive excellence isn't just morally right, it's economically smart. When you create environments where everyone feels valued and respected, you attract better employees, serve more customers, and build stronger communities. I want to leave you with this thought, Jasmine said, addressing both lobby audience and thousands of live stream viewers who had witnessed entire confrontation and its resolution. Power isn't about having authority over people, it's about having ability to create positive change in world. When you have power, use it to lift others up. When you don't have power, use your voice to demand better. And when you witness injustice, remember that your response in that moment defines who you are. She paused, allowing words to resonate across marble lobby and through phones and computers of viewers around world. Today, discrimination met accountability in real time. Tomorrow, we build something better. The question isn't whether change is possible, it's whether you're willing to be part of creating it. Patricia Williams finally ended her live stream after nearly 2 hours of broadcasting, her viewer count having peaked at over 40,000 people who had witnessed most spectacular example of instant karma and immediate accountability many had ever seen. As crowd in Sterling Regency lobby finally began to disperse, conversations continued on social media, in news outlets, and in boardrooms around country. Jasmine Brooks had accomplished something remarkable. She had transformed moment of personal discrimination into catalyst for industry-wide examination of inclusive practices and accountable leadership. The morning light that had initially illuminated scene of prejudice and exclusion now shone on space, committed to dignity, respect, and kind of hospitality that truly serves everyone. The Sterling Regency Chicago had become more than just hotel. it had become symbol of what's possible when justice arrives with force of immediate action and vision of lasting change. Because, in the end, true power isn't about intimidating people when you think they can't fight back. It's about creating a world where everyone is treated with dignity, respect, and recognition that character matters more than appearance, integrity matters more than assumptions, and justice, when it finally arrives, changes everything.